Good evening and thank you for joining us on India Business Hour. I'm Ashmit Kumar and here are the headlines that we're tracking this hour. The Wall Street bucks the global trend. Sensex and Nifty gain nearly 1%, outperforming their peers. Financial and metal stocks surge in trade. A strong rally in the US dollar rattles currencies across the globe. Rupee weakens to move closer to the 80 mark. The euro falls to its lowest level against the dollar in 2 decades. Financial markets tumble across Europe and gas prices hit a record high after Russia halts supply, citing the need for additional repairs to the pipeline. A Kremlin spokesperson says gas supply will not resume until the West lifts its sanctions. Crude oil prices rise after OPEC Plus nations agree to a small production cut.
Liz Truss is elected as the leader of the Conservative and Unionist Party.
Liz Truss pips Rishi Sunak by 20,000 votes to become the leader of the British Conservative Party and the next Prime Minister of United Kingdom. The 47-year-old will be the third woman to lead the country after Margaret Thatcher and Theresa May. Former Tata Sons chairman Cyrus Mistry dies after a car crash in Maharashtra's Palghar. The 54-year-old was returning to Mumbai from a town in Gujarat. The last rites will take place tomorrow. Jharkhand Chief Minister Hemant Soren wins the trust vote in the Assembly as the BJP stages a walkout. Soren initiated the trust vote after accusing the BJP of attempting to bring the government down. The Election Commission is reported to have recommended Soren's disqualification as an MLA for allocating a mining lease to himself. Several parts of Bengaluru are marooned for the second time in a week after heavy rains lashed the city overnight. All residents told to stay indoors except for emergency. More rainfall is expected through the week. Honeywell India is upbeat on growth and expects FY24 to be a golden year. Management is hopeful that semiconductor shortage will ease next year, does not see the need for a merger between unlisted entities, and rules out any possibility of delisting. That's an exclusive. And William Sonoma, the owner of brands like Pottery Barn and West Elm, is bullish on India and the furnishing sector. Stays with us for an exclusive interview. Well, let's start with the day's market action. The Wall Street bucked weak global cues, with both the Sensex and the Nifty gaining nearly 1% in trade. Now, financial stocks and metal stocks led the rally. Anuj Singhal is joining us now with a quick wrap of the day's market action. Anuj.
Very strong day for the bulls, and this is not after a gap up. In fact, the market opened absolutely flat, and after that just built on through the day, and the Nifty ended with over 100-point gains. The Bank Nifty once again outperformed as it has done over the last many days, and that index was up close to 1%. The Indian market has been the best performing market globally among the big markets, and this despite a general risk-off sentiment that you're seeing in the global market, where the dollar index has gone up to 110. Still, the Indian market seems to be outperforming. As I said, the large part of this move happened because of move in financials. So that was clearly one space where, again, there was outperformance. So names like ICICI Bank, Kotak, and Axis did well. Metals was the other pocket where we saw some gains. So names like Hindalco, JSW Steel, and Tata Steel did well. The heavyweight pockets, they also outperformed. So names like Reliance, ITC, and Larsen & Toubro as well were also higher. In the futures and options space, there was a bit of a return of laggards. Exide and Amara Raja were the top two gainers, both up between 6 and 8%. Indian Hotels has been on tear, up 5%. PVR was higher in trade. All in all, there's clearly a momentum in Indian market.
Well, in the money market, meanwhile, the Indian currency weakened against the dollar, trading just a few points away from the 80 per dollar mark. The US dollar has touched a fresh 20-year high in anticipation of further rate hikes by the Federal Reserve. In a major hit to the European Union currency, the euro has dropped below the US dollar for the first time in 20 years. The currency fell after Russia's energy supply giant Gazprom said it will not be resuming its gas supply to the European Union, citing oil leakage in the Nord Stream 1 pipeline. Well, staying with the crude prices, the shutting down of this pipeline pushed gas prices up by a sharp 36% across Europe. Russia's Kremlin said that gas supply will remain shut until sanctions imposed by the Western countries are lifted. However, state-owned gas company Gazprom said that supply has been halted due to a leak in the pipeline. The company earlier had kept the pipeline shut last week for routine maintenance checks. Europe has been accusing Russia of using gas supplies to blackmail European countries because of the Ukraine conflict. CNBC's Steve Segwick joins us now. Steve, take us through what you're picking up and how has the European Union reacted over closure of this all-important gas pipeline?
Is there outright shock of what the Russians have done? Absolutely not. I mean, everybody who's game playing this situation, who is looking at the chess game being played between Putin and the West, knew that this was a possibility. But just let me make the point for a historical comparison. There was a Cold War, a vicious Cold War, an arms race between the West and the Soviet Union for many decades. The Russians never turned the taps off for energy coming to the West during that period. So President Putin has done something that the Soviet Union didn't do at the height of various crises over that period, turned off the taps to Europe as well. And is it logical? Well, from his point of view, maybe. Sowing dissension, creating a cost of living crisis, trying to create splits perhaps in the EU response and EU support of Ukraine as well. But crashing the European economy potentially, and let's be brutally honest about it, sending Europe into recession is not an outside scenario given this enormous price of gas. What I've been hearing a very robust response from policymakers. Now, I know from some voters it may well be a different response. I started off by asking Mr. Gentiloni, then Mr. Le Maire, about their reaction to what Russia has done. Let's listen in.
Even if the weaponization of energy will continue or will increase in response to our decisions, I think that the European Union is ready to react. Of course, we will have to save energy, we will have to share energy, we have high level of storage, and we are not afraid of Putin's decisions.
The key point is to pass through this winter without too many difficulties for European economies and European citizens. That's the key point.
In terms of the Western alliance as well, I spoke to Lindsey Graham, absolutely key US Republican senator, very, very close friend and confidant of Donald Trump as well, who may or may not make another run in 2024. He firmly believes that that the Ukraine can win the war, which I think is incredible, given the fact that he believes a lot of weaponry will go towards Ukraine from the West and from the United States especially. But B, he thinks that the Western alliance has been become more coordinated and perhaps reinvigorated by this as well. So if Mr. Putin is trying to split up the West, yes, in the short term he's creating a lot of pain. Over the medium to long term, the policymakers I've been speaking to think he's made a catastrophic and historic mistake.
Meanwhile, crude oil prices soared almost 4% after major oil producers agreed to cut production by 1 lakh barrels a day to bolster prices. OPEC has hinted that they will cut output even further if recessionary fears linger. Well, here's the big global story. Liz Truss will be succeeding Boris Johnson as the next Prime Minister of United Kingdom. The 47-year-old defeated party colleague Rishi Sunak by over 20,000 votes in the Tory leadership battle. Truss accounted for 57% of the votes. Liz Truss's ascendancy comes at a time when United Kingdom is witnessing a cost of living crisis, incidents of industrial unrest and a looming recession. Truss would be the third woman after Margaret Thatcher and Theresa May to head the UK government.
Rishi Sunak, 60,399. Liz Truss, 81,326. Therefore, I give notice that Liz Truss is elected as the leader of the Conservative and Unionist Party. We'll come up on stage.
It's an honour to be elected as leader of the Conservative and Unionist Party. I will deliver a bold plan to cut taxes and grow our economy.
Well, Sanjay Suri now joins us from London. Sanjay, it's been a busy day for you. What does Liz Truss as UK Prime Minister mean for Indo-UK ties? Also, give us a sense of what this means for the political career of Rishi Sunak.
Well, in terms of Indo-UK ties, the big issue coming up is the free trade agreement. And as Trade Secretary earlier, Liz Truss had led the negotiations over that. She initiated it, and she has been very closely involved in the nuts and bolts of that. That process continues, and with Liz Truss now as Prime Minister, it's very likely that she will take a personal interest in seeing that the momentum is maintained and that we have an agreement in place. It has been suggested that it could be in place by Diwali, but certainly Liz Truss said at one of the hustings that she would want it in place at the very latest by the end of the year. So certainly we can expect some personal push from Liz Truss in that direction, and it's beyond really a personal involvement because post-Brexit, Britain very much needs such deals. These were promised in the Brexit campaign, and this is the big one that is awaiting delivery. For Rishi Sunak, this is the end of the road, but not as dramatically as predicted. He clearly came off second best, but Liz got 57% of the vote. That was a fair bit less than the pundits had predicted and the polls had suggested. So Rishi Sunak, well, behind by 20,000 votes, that's a lot, but still a very respectable second. The question is whether he will now get a place in Liz Truss's cabinet or not. We will have to await that decision later this week and then see whether there could be other openings for him. Mayorship of London, other posts within the party, but all that is somewhere down the line.
Right. So, again, a big challenge ahead for Liz Truss as well. The winter is coming, a lot of situations on the hand, including inflation, as well as, of course, managing ties with its European partners, as well as the Commonwealth partners. So, again, a big challenge ahead. Let's move forward now. Tragic news from the corporate world. Cyrus Mistry, former chairman of Tata Sons, was killed in a car accident in Maharashtra's Palghar district yesterday. The 54-year-old Mistry, who served as the head of the conglomerate for close to 4 years before being ousted, was accompanied by 3 others. They were en route Mumbai from Udvada, a town in Gujarat. Jahangir Pandole, director of Global Strategy Group at KPMG's London office, was also killed in the crash. The others, Darius Pandole, MD and CEO of JM Financial Private Equity, and his wife, Dr. Anhita Pandole, are currently undergoing treatment at a Mumbai hospital. Dr. Pandole was driving the car while Darius Pandole was on the front passenger seat. Tributes poured in from India Inc., top industrialists taking to social media to offer their condolences. Prime Minister Narendra Modi condoled Cyrus Mistry's death, called it a huge loss to the world of commerce and industry. We spoke to 2 former members of Tata Sons Group Executive Council, Mukund Rajan and Nirmalaya Kumar, people who worked very closely with Cyrus Mistry. Here's a slice of those conversations.
He was a boss like no other in terms of promoters. Even as a promoter, he allowed me to sit in the room in front of others, openly disagree with him, and sometimes even violently so, because we knew that both of us were trying for the same objective. His strategy document 2025 is the one that was followed by his successor. So it shows you that in terms of strategy, the thinking that he had was pretty solid. I'll just tell you a little story, for your listeners. We were in the Zurich airport checking out one of our companies which had set up an operation over there. And, at the end of about 4 o'clock, we are going back to the hotel. And he tells me, Nirmalaya, do you know this hot dog stand outside the Zurich train station? I said, yeah, he's a very famous hot dog stand. He said, Nirmalaya, can we stop over there and buy a hot dog? He could love something as simple as that, even if he ate at the best restaurants and he was a billionaire. And that was the very human side of Cyrus.
He was, in a sense, the full package that you needed as a leader, somebody with an outstanding vision, somebody with huge financial acumen, somebody who understood where the vulnerabilities lay and had the right plan of action to address them, and somebody who was a people's person who could make his team, who could make managers and leaders very comfortable around him.
His ouster from the group in October 2016, how did it really affect him? We saw a very bitter corporate battle take place post that. Mr. Mistry also didn't take it very well. He wanted to take the issue to the board, and then we saw that legal fight that went on for several years. When this news came to him, how did he take it, and how did it affect him all these years? You were someone who knew him very well.
Well, an event like that can be obviously extremely depressing. It creates a huge amount of angst. And then to take on a corporate battle of the proportions this assumed obviously requires massive stamina and staying power. And the fact that he stuck it out till the very end, including the appeal which was made to the Supreme Court recently in this year, which amended some of the earlier judgment of the same court, speaks a lot about the individual and his determination to see something through. After he left the group has gone on to do even better, which suggests that he left it in a strong place and it has gone on from strength to strength. So I think he would have been pleased as a continuing shareholder of the Tata Group, of Tata Sons, that the group has done well. He would have been sad that he was not there to continue to play a role, at least on the operating side. And I think he would have just recognized that it was time to move on.
Well, the last rites, we understand, will be performed tomorrow. Let's shift focus now. There is still no decision on the GST slab for online gaming, casinos and horse racing. The group of ministers deciding on the rates met today. The GOM will seek legal opinion on the applicable rate and valuation base and submit their report in the next 7 to 10 days. Sources say the panel feels the three games are different in nature and the GOM is open to the view of levying different rates and considering different valuation mechanisms for all three if required.
Talking of three different games.
Yes.
All games are not the same. And this GOM is being asked to look into three separate games which function in three very, very different ways. The gross gaming revenue is something that is applicable in, say, a casino, and the methodology on where and how it should be collected are areas which we are looking at. The GOM is going to submit the report to the council. So ultimately, it is a council that's going to take the decision. These are just recommendations, suggestions which will be given.
So when is the next GOM meeting likely?
We are hopeful that within the next 1 week to 10 days, we should be able to close this.
Meanwhile, India's services activity accelerated in August from a 4-month low in July. The S&P Global India Purchasing Managers Index rose to 57.2 in August from 55.5 in the month of July. Any reading above the 50 mark indicates growth as activities in the services sector expanded for the 13th straight month. In a relief for Adani Ports, the Supreme Court said that the company's disqualification from participating in bidding for Visakhapatnam Port cannot be treated as the basis for companies' ineligibility to participate in future tenders. In June, Adani Ports had moved the Bombay High Court, challenging the Board of Trustees of Jawaharlal Nehru Port Authority for disqualifying its bid to upgrade a terminal in Navi Mumbai. The Apex Court had asked Adani Ports to withdraw its petition, which has been agreed upon by the company. In M&A news, multi-speciality hospital Narayana Hridayalaya has expanded its footprint. The hospital chain is set to acquire Bengaluru's Shiva and Shiva Orthopedic Hospital. The deal has been locked at 200 crore rupees. Shares of Hindustan Aeronautics and L&T surged in trade after companies bagged a huge order to jointly build 5 PSLV rockets for New Space India. This marks the industry's maiden foray into end-to-end production of PSLVs. The order is worth 860 crore rupees and the consortium aims to deliver the first rocket in less than 2 years. Well, with that, it's time now to slip into a very short break. But coming up next, Honeywell India says it is upbeat on growth and expects FY24 to be a golden year. An exclusive report on the other side. Stay tuned.